The disassembly of the 518 A40 6RE or 46RE. Right now, draining the transmission fluid out. We've got the other side of the pan completely, all the bolts out. It's tilted down and it's draining, and then we'll drop the rest of it. Then we'll have to drain some more when we pull the valve body out. One thing we're going to do now is take a photo right here, this photo, so all the linkage and everything, we have a documented picture of what it was like before we took it apart. The pan from the automatic transmission, the 46RE, the bolts were not inside, we put them in afterwards. This is what it looked like. I'm thinking this transmission was rebuilt as well as the engine had been rebuilt. There's very little debris in it, which is, for 200,000 miles, that's really unusual. And the gasket came off fairly easily. So that kind of leads me to believe that this has been rebuilt. If we move over to the transmission, this is what it looks like with the pan off. Now, first thing we have to do is take out these two Torx. They're T25s. That'll remove the oil filter. And then we have all of the 7/16 bolts to remove to get the valve body off. There are two other T25 Torx. There's one here and one here. And then this has one of those locking clips on it, so you have to pull it back before you can press it in and remove it. And then there's another one over here. The bolts that held the pan on were 1/2 inch, 13 millimeter. Okay, so we'll take all of that off. And what we're doing is we're taking everything off and we're going to lay it out in sequence, and then we'll rebuild everything with all the new parts up on this table as soon as the new parts get here. Body out and pan and stuff off. It was, and or maybe rest. I had enough strength that I could lift this and put this up on the table. Finally, to get the pump off, you take all the bolts off, and then there's two bolts here and here. They're not straight through, they're threaded. The other holes are no threads. So I just took my slide hammer that I have for pulling dents, and it happened to be the right 7/16, but wrong coarseness, but it's still, I just screwed it in enough that it was tight and slammed it a little bit. Went from one side to the other side, back and forth until it broke it loose. And so now this front pump can come off. Like so. Get the valve body out. In addition to the screws, the bolts that we showed you before, you have to take the arms, they'll be on the outside of the transmission, these off that run the linkage. This should already be disconnected electrical. Once you do that, then you should be able to push through and lift from the other side the valve body and pull it out. You'll have the parking brake lever, the parking pole as it's called, but you have plenty of movement to lift it up and out. And then you'll have your transmission exposed, and here's the two spots where I pushed from this side while I lifted the valve body and tilted it up to get the parking pole out of here. Now once you've done that, you got your bands, which you can back off and adjust, and you'll also have, if we don't turn it over, you'll have this spring and piston, and in there there'll be more oil or transmission fluid. There's always transmission fluid. No matter what you do, there's more and more and more. It's almost impossible not to have it leak somewhere. But then you can take this out. You can undo the band adjustments from the outside, which will allow you to then swing the bands around and take them off. You're going to have to readjust them anyway with new bands. Again, this looks pretty good as far as not seeing metal. It was running okay, so again, most of the reason why I'm rebuilding is I wasn't sure, and the vehicle had 200,000 miles on it, but it looks like this probably was rebuilt. And I'm putting in a beefed up engine, so why not beef up the transmission while you got it out? So I'm putting in all the heavy duty components for this transmission. Now it's just a case of reaching in and pulling out assemblies. There's front assembly, you get the front band, and the next assembly. And I stopped here because one of the things I wanted to make sure, after that you hit a thrust washer, okay? Get down the thrust washer. And make note of how it went on. So when you get your new ones and you put your new ones on, they go on correctly. And do that as you pull each assembly out. Automatic transmissions are really very simple. You just pull them out, and then there's clutch packs, steel clutch, steel clutch, steel clutch, that are held in by snap rings, split rings. You take the split ring out, and then you repack it. Like with the other stuff, though, we'll put these down. There's the pump, and I'll put the first one I took out next to it, and then the next one, and so on, so that I have the order for putting them back in. Although it's pretty straightforward, but still, the less chance for error, the better. First assembly pulled out with the band that goes around it, and then the piece that was behind it with the shaft. Here's the thrust washer, and behind the thrust washer was another steel washer, so we put them that way so we know to put them back in. And then we pulled out the next planetary assembly with clutches and stuff in it, and this was where the washer and then the thrust washer went before we can slide this back on. Now inside we have the last band and the drum that goes around it, or that it goes around. And before we can get that off, there's a snap ring here and then a washer, and we take that snap ring off, and then this would come out. There's a split ring, and then there's a thrust washer. And once you take the split ring off, you can get the thrust washer and pull this out. You can, if you've loosened the band, you can get it out without taking the band off, but we will take the band off because we're replacing it. There's this section that's bolted on, and then there was this piston which drives in and out. See the gasket, and there's 2 alignment pins that were in here, and to get that off, all we had to do was just pull back and it came off.